Welcome to today's episode of the podcast, and we're super excited because we have our very first guest today.
Woo-woo. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Miss Deveney, the proud owner of
Wells Gibson Family Law and the Prenup Queen.
Yes, and the Prenup Queen. That's also her Instagram handle, correct?
It is.
Yes. So we're excited to have her in and just talk to us about her business. And then also, she also has a podcast, so we'll kind of lead into that. And then also, what is this like Prenup Queen and like all the fun aspects that you have about your personality that you also try to mesh with your actual law practice and like just changing the face of what an attorney needs to look like.
Yeah. Yes. So Wells Gibson Family Law, that's the umbrella of everything. So we specialize in divorces, custody battles, domestic violence restraining orders, property division, spousal support, aka alimony, all that good stuff. That's all under the umbrella of family law. Nice. And what I've learned is through my time with Wells Gibson Family Law, it has made me very jaded to relationships. And of course, you know, me trying to date and eventually want to be married, it's been a negative impact on me. And so what I've created now was the Prenup Queen, which is the complete opposite of Wells Gibson Family Law. So the Prenup Queen focuses on people who are trying to get married or engaged to be married, and then trying to foster healthier relationships by encouraging certain discussions around like money, because finances end up being a reason for divorce.
Right.
So Prenup Queen, trying to lower the divorce rate, strengthen marriages. And then on the other side, we have Wells Gibson Family Law for the marriages that didn't work out.
Oh, poor guys. Or people. Just like people. Okay, cool. So is that what inspired you? Was just basically like for the Prenup Queen, it was just to help when they do get into that messy situation of a divorce to make it less messy.
No.
Okay.
The whole reason why I even got into family law is because my mom. So my mom and my dad's divorce, and then how it impacted my mom, and then how that eventually trickled down to me and impacted the child. So everything that I do is actually for the benefit of the kid. The children are the reason why I'm doing anything that I'm doing.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. So when my parents split, my mom ended up working up to like 3 jobs, just trying to make ends meet. And that meant that she couldn't be completely and fully available for me because she was constantly working. And then, of course, me being an only child, just bored out of my mind. So just wanting her presence more, wanting her to be more engaged with my activities and like just being involved. But she did the best she could. She was trying to make ends meet. The divorce just was unfair to her and her circumstances. But as like most women, when they're going through a divorce, they're just like, I just want to be done. I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight for what I'm entitled to. I just want to be done, not understanding that there's an impact to that. So that impact trickles down to the kid, me, my mom's struggling to make things happen, but she's trying to do her best for me. So that's why I got into family law. And then prenups, kind of the same situation. So my whole thing with prenups is really just trying to encourage women to really advocate for themselves, have discussions around finances. If you want to be a stay-at-home parent, what does that look like? And then having those discussions to protect anyone that wants to be a stay-at-home parent. If there's assets involved, things you're coming into the marriage with, inheritances, just how can you protect that so that in the event there is a divorce or you do split, you're protected. And then if you have kids, your kids aren't negatively impacted.
Yeah, a person who has been divorced myself, got married really young, also got divorced really young. I do remember when I met my current husband, I was a little older, and I was like, I want to continue to grow my family, even though I had my son from a previous marriage. And one of the things was like, well, how are we going to do this? And like, how am I going to be able to stay at home and raise our children? Well, you go move up that corporate ladder And then, but I think that if I would have gotten advice to get a prenup, I probably would have, because clearly we don't have that now. but I do. We've been married over 10 years, and so I got some, alimony if I need it.
Long term.
Yeah, right. But it's like, you don't think about those things, and especially, and not to say like you don't want to, not stay at home or whatever, but like you said, there's inheritances, there's other, stuff that you can occur together. So question on a prenup could it be written where when you occur your investments together, that those are now community property, but anything before that. So if you had, you're a ballin' bitch and you had like 5 homes and you got some good, investments that you've already did, now that is totally separate.
Yeah. And that's already California law. It's where people go wrong when they try to mix things. So like if you have homes before you get into the marriage, those are your separate property. But then once you start paying that mortgage during the marriage, now you've started to accumulate a community interest in your separate property. So that's where things tend to get really messy because people don't understand that once you're married, you are now in a community, in a union. So all the money that you make during the marriage is community. So if you start putting that community money towards separate things, you've now commingled. And then having to unwind all that is where the mess occurs in a divorce.
Yeah.
But in your situation, had I met you 10 years ago, my thing for a prenup for you wouldn't have necessarily been the assets. It would have been the fact that it's essentially a blended family.
Yeah.
Because not all of the kids are your husband's. And so just making sure, like, if anything happens to you, the non-biological kids of your husband's are taken care of.
Right.
So that's usually how I go about prenups for folks who are doing blended families.
That's good to know. Yeah, nobody talks about that. Yeah, because, nowadays people get married and remarried and, and they usually have some children that they're bringing into that marriage. And so I know that was one of my worries, like if something ever were to happen to me, and we did have those conversations, my husband and I, like, am I going to have to ship him off back to his daddy? And like, like what's going to happen with that? And those were tough conversations, but, luckily we had really good conversations about that. And he was like, no, he's my son and I'm going to take care of him and I'll just co-parent with his biological dad. I'm like, okay, cool. Can we get that in writing?
Right. We are just trying to avoid, what is that, Cinderella?
Yes.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid those situations.
Just going to throw this off topic really quick, but I was listening to Talk University, and there was a thing where it's talking about abuse, and it was like when the high situation where a kid could be abused is when they are put into a home with a non-biological parent.
Yes.
And then they brought up the Cinderella story, and I was like, oh, because he was like, do you think it's, if parents are taking drugs? Do you think if parents are, doing A, B, C, and D, right? And then the number one thing was, yeah, their child is a step, or their parent is a step parent. That's the one who's abusing.
And honestly, as nasty as it's going to sound, I almost want to attribute like pornography to that a little bit.
Interesting.
There's a lot of like stepmom, stepdad, and all that stuff. I remember I had a consult with somebody who her current husband was actually he was charged with having sex with a minor, the minor being her daughter, and it was his non-biological child.
Yeah.
And she was like 16, 17 years old. And just the fact that you marry someone trusting them, to care for your child as if they're their own, and they're off having like sexual relations with them, which is sexual abuse, which is rape at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're underage.
Yeah.
Sorry for do I have to bleep that word out?
No, you're good. No. I cuss all the time on the podcast.
keep it how it is.
Right.
Yeah, telling the truth. What about for people who like don't have anything coming to a marriage?
Okay. I get this question a lot only because they're thinking like, well, there's nothing to protect. And I will always say that you're not going to have nothing forever. The goal is to build. And if you guys want to build something together, that's totally fine. Like a prenup does not mean there has to be separate property. If y'all want everything to be community, it can be community. But a prenup is a way for you to set your own terms. So like if you don't like what the state has created, create your own. So if you want everything to be community, and then if something happens, how are things going to be divided? Or if creditors come, how are we going to handle these creditors? you can create those own rules instead of defaulting into the states. So if someone decides they want to be a stay-at-home parent, then what someone could do, especially if there's no assets as of right now, is someone going to put into like a retirement account. If the person's a stay-at-home parent, they can also have their own retirement account so long as their spouse is working. Do we put a percentage into their retirement account also? And then like just having these discussions so that way both people are still building something, no matter what the circumstances might be. So it's just a way to just have interesting, hypothetical, futuristic talks about money and then putting it on paper.
Yeah. I like that because I think for a lot of people, and for me especially, like we're starting a business. We did a little bit backwards. Started a business.
Look, it's okay.
It's okay. A lot of people have a baby first and then get married.
True. We do have an operating agreement, and I am 51% owner. Thank you, Chris. We love you.
Yay.
But yeah, because then like we have our debts and stuff, but we don't have like assets that we're coming into. So it's like, then what do we divide? How do we divide it? I mean, yeah, like you said, I like the imagining the future where we will have all of these things and how do we want to separate it?
A prenup pretty much too, I'm just thinking about this right now. It's very similar to, because I do think of marriage as like a business transaction, even though that's so
It is
not
though.
romantic.
I mean, energetically it is.
Right,
Yeah.
it is.
But like similar to like when you get a business, like what type of corporation are you creating? What type of protections are you putting in place? And that's essentially what you're doing with the prenup. And so like, for example, we had a situation where we were representing an ex of someone. So we're representing a woman.
Okay.
And her ex-husband owes her so much money from back spousal support. And he's thinking like, oh, I'm done with this lady. I remarried. I never have to worry about my ex ever again. Had he got a prenup, had his new wife got a prenup saying your debts are separate, you cannot touch anything that's mine, nothing.
Right.
Then she would have been protected in the sense that with my client, we ended up going after also her stuff.
Ooh.
Because
Oh, hell no.
right? Because it's community.
Dang.
It's community, meaning he
Yeah.
has a half interest in her stuff.
Right.
So she had a home, so we put a lien on the house. So that way, because we knew they were going to try to sell it, if they were going to sell it, they would have to pay the
Her
lien
off,
off. Yeah. And so it became a whole mess. And I just remember thinking like, man, has she had a prenup?
Right.
Had they
Yeah.
had these discussions, then she could have waived that prenup at us saying, no, this house is my sole and separate property. There is no community, which means he has no 50% interest in this. Take your lien elsewhere or try to get your money elsewhere, but you're not touching my stuff.
Right. What happens when some fool or some girl, either Susie or John, goes and decides to step outside of the marriage? And, okay, here's a scenario that I'm thinking about. You both come into your marriage with nothing, right? You're like, oh, whatever. And then, but you have a prenup and you're like, okay, if this is what we're going to, going forward, like these are divorce agreements or whatever. But if one of them cheats on each other, can you put that into your prenup and, make it be like, if this happens, then now it just all becomes community property? Or am I making shit up?
You're not. And prenups are so like state specific. So it really depends on like what state you're in because each state has their own laws.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is also your warning sign to go Google whatever state you live in.
Correct. So
We're talking about California, by the way.
Yes. In California, it's called an infidelity clause is what you're talking about.
Okay.
Infidelity clauses are a no-go in California, but that's only if it gets challenged, which a lot of people don't challenge prenups anyways. So meaning if someone tried to implement the infidelity clause and someone was like, actually, if I were to take this to court, the court would be like, I can't honor that because we don't honor infidelity clauses.
Because a lot of people in California cheat.
A lot of people cheat, period. That's just,
Right.
I'm
just playing.
But in California, infidelity clauses are a no-go. So I always tell people not to put it in there because there are times where if you put a provision in a prenup and it touches on a lot of other provisions in the prenup, but that one provision is now invalid, it's affecting now your entire prenup.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Wow.
So I tell people don't even put an infidelity clause in it, because I know that if it gets challenged, it could invalidate the entire prenup. So there are other states, though, that are fault states, because California is no fault, meaning they don't care what the reason is for the divorce.
Right.
But there are states that are fault states, meaning if there is infidelity, which means you have to prove infidelity, it's going to change the outcome of your case. So like if you're the spouse that's trying to be supported with alimony, spousal support, but you cheated, you're not getting spousal support.
Can you move to one of those states that
That is exactly what people do.
Wow.
Yes. And it's called, that is also technically illegal. It's called form shopping.
Right. Yeah, that seems like fraudulent a little bit.
Yes,
And-
but it happens all the time.
Yeah. But then that's more fees, and especially if the other person knows, like, you're trying to, pull the wool over the court, I guess, eyes. I don't know if I say that right, but
Pull over the head.
there you
Pull
go.
the sheets over the head.
Yeah. Wow. Damn.
So then, like, what if someone's married and they didn't have a prenup? Like, are they just like, you're fucked and then that's it?
They can do a postnup.
Oh, okay.
So you have the prenup, meaning prenuptial, so prenuptial agreements, meaning before the wedding. And then there's postnups, post the nuptial, so postnuptial agreements. But they're a little bit different. The same document, same things are in there, but they're treated differently in court. So prenups are stronger because you have more of a bargaining power, because the bargain is, or the bargaining power is, if you don't agree, I can walk away. Whereas if you're married, there is no walking away, you're married.
Right.
So the courts tend to view prenups as being stronger as opposed to postnups, because prenups have that stronger negotiation power.
Right. So I'm hearing that you like to work with your prenup clients more so than the divorce clients.
The divorce clients bring in more money.
Right.
Love money.
We'll still take you. You
Always
can sit
hire-
on my lap. It's fine. We'll bring you in.
Divorce is so much more expensive than just a prenup.
Yeah, it
so
is,
the average cost of a divorce is about $17,000. Average cost. And that's when there's no children involved. Once
Right.
there's kids involved, that number skyrockets.
Right.
I think the most expensive person I've had at the firm, from beginning to end, they've paid our firm a little over $60,000.
Ooh.
And then I had another client who switched from another firm, and she had paid that previous firm over six figures before coming to us, and then maybe paid us like another $20,000.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So get your prenups.
Right.
Yeah, it will save you so much money, but people, they do see a price tag, and it's like, okay, but the risk involved, it's not worth it, especially if you have kids at that point, and then you're getting divorced and you're spending $60,000 when you have kids.
Yeah.
That money could be better spent.
Some stuff, I mean, my divorce did not cost that much, but a lot of it is because we were just having conversations, a lot of conversations. Luckily we got along throughout the process. We didn't have much to fight over, but when there was things to like nitpick about, it was just trying to like be cordial. And for me and my ex, I would say it was be cordial to each other for our son.
Yes.
And I think sometimes people lose sight of that because they're whatever the situation got them there, they just don't have that respect for each other anymore. But it's like, but in the long run, like what you said, though, the children is who suffers. And I'm sure my son, I can't speak for him, but I'm pretty sure he had to go to therapy over us too. And even then that was still like a not horrible situation, and so it does impact the kids. And I feel like there's also just this whole free thing that you can do, which is communication. It's for free.
Literally. And it can totally change the tune of the divorce process.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, like, resentment is actually what keeps divorce attorneys in business.
Oh. Wow.
Because if you're amicable, then it's a split. Like, it's an easy split. It's an easy uncoupling. But it's the bickering, it's the resentment, it's the spitefulness, and then wanting to get one over on the other person or teach the other person a lesson. That's what racks up their bills.
Yeah, that's going to cost you that $60,000.
And you got to be careful with who you marry too, because there's that saying, like, the person you divorce is not the person you married. They're two very different people. So if the other person is resentful, spiteful, and you're not, you're still going to incur fees because of them.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if they're not willing to be amicable, now we have to go to court. Now we have to do all these things. And even if you're a good person and you're trying your best to like do things fair and equitable, the other person is going to be the reason why you incur fees.
What would the cost of just an average prenup, if there's even an average number to put on it?
It depends.
If you don't mind me asking.
It depends, because some people do flat fees and then some people do a retainer, meaning they bill by the hour. So like when I first started out, my prenups were like $12.50, and that was extreme.
Below market value.
It was extremely cheap.
You're
Extremely
pimping
cheap.
yourself out.
Yes, literally. And I've learned my lesson on that one. But you can go online, and there's so many programs out there like Hello Prenup that does, you just click some buttons on what you want and it'll spit something out. The only thing you have to be careful about on that is there's one rule that if you put in a provision regarding spousal support, you have to have an attorney. It is mandatory.
Oh, that makes sense. Because then now you're negotiating money. I mean, like, yeah, after the marriage or whatever.
Right. That's the only provision that requires an attorney. Otherwise, you can completely eliminate spousal support and say, we will address this at a later day and time if that day and time comes. So that way you can move forward with the prenup without an attorney. But the minute you say, like, someone's going to waive it or you're going to try to put a dollar value on it, now there has to be an attorney. So that's the only thing I would say be careful on. But otherwise, ChatGPT, I don't know, do something. And then
Notarize it.
and then, or just take it to an attorney to review if you don't want to like
Right.
hire an attorney to actually draft everything from beginning to end. So there's so many ways to make it cost effective. But usually the more assets there are to protect, the more expensive it will end up being.
And what clients do you tend to get, more men or women?
So men, which I mean, if men are like listening to this, like please keep coming to me. But I really want more women because that's who I really want to protect and educate, because women are more emotional when it comes to relationships. So they're forgetting the logical side of it. They're forgetting that it's still a business transaction. They're forgetting that like society views marriage as like a transaction. It's not emotional to like the IRS and the California Franchise Tax Board and creditors and all these things. They're not looking at the emotional side of marriage. They're looking at the transactional business side of it. And so that's why I prefer women, because I want to educate and make sure they're going to be taken care of. But it's usually the men who hire me.
Right. One of the things that I do really urge everybody to go to is her Prenup Queen Instagram and TikTok, because you do give a lot of good insights, even in your stories. So it's like, that is really good information for people who are single, or even if like, you know, like I'm married and I'm like, you know, not to say that, you know, if I had wood, I'd knock on it right now, but you know, you just never know. And so it's just good to be informed. And also the other thing about her account is that it is very entertaining. So can you explain to us, what other ways do you entertain us via the Prenup Queen?
So I also enjoy dancing, but it's not like, no, it is. It is pretty, it can be raunchy.
We're not mad at it.
Right. Yes.
Let us see.
Yes.
But I have learned to tone it down a little bit. So you hardly see like any more like booty or like me wearing like lingerie. Now I'm in more like
Booty shorts that cover the cheeks.
Right. She's in her Paula Abdul gear. If anybody knows who Paula Abdul, do you even know who Paula Abdul is? Oh, okay, cool. I was like, damn, don't tell me I'm that old.
but yeah, I enjoy dancing. It's a great outlet.
Yeah.
It also helps me still feel like super feminine, because being an attorney, especially in my field, I'm in my masculine a lot.
Yes.
So just dancing, feeling that like feminine energy, it's just really nice. It's different.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So we were talking about
Prenup Queen.
Prenup Queen.
Yes, and your Instagram. Also, I want you to share with us, one of the things that you shared with Valerie and I in our Biz Bestie community was that you wanted to change the face of what like an attorney looks like. So can you explain more on that?
Yeah, we all seen Suits. We all seen How to Get Away with Murder. We've all seen like these attorney shows, and all of them make attorneys look really stuffy.
Oh, Olivia Pope.
Even though they look good.
Even
though.
Olivia Pope was cute.
They look
for
good.
sure. But
like the very black, white, navy, tan, maybe even tan's kind of pushing a little bit, but like very neutral colors. And it's very like briefcase in hand, stuffy, I'm going to court and this is how I talk. And that's not my personality at all. And I'm a very bubbly, I like colors. But I'm still smart. Like, just because I dress differently or I want to present myself differently doesn't mean I can't advocate for somebody.
Right.
So it's just been, how can I still be myself and stay true to myself while also still being a solid advocate? And so what you see on Instagram of me dancing, that was hard to post because it's like, that's not what an attorney looks like. And if someone's going to Google me or look me up,
right,
that's not what they're going to want to like represent them. And or at least that's what I've told myself.
Right.
But then I just started posting it because I was like, I would rather attract people who want me to be happy outside of work. I want to attract people who want me to be myself, because then that's how I can like truly and authentically like present myself to them. So it's been an interesting journey, but I've come to realize that people actually like the relatability when it comes to hiring an attorney.
Yeah.
And I actually just had my first consult, not even my first consult, but I will say first, I don't know. I just recently had a consult with the Gen Zer, but this one was so different because I think she was super young, but getting divorced.
Oh, wow.
And like the way she was interacting with me was very different than talking to a millennial or talking to someone older than me. And that relatability, it just felt natural. Like she's talking to me like, girl, like.
right.
And I was like.
That was little Arlene, like 20 years ago.
It almost felt like I was code switching. So like I had to catch myself and I was like, I'm so sorry, that's so unprofessional. And she was just like, no, like you're the only attorney, because she's had other interviews.
Yeah.
And she was just like, I relate the most to you. And then like hired.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. But there was a moment where I leaned in and I also started like saying, girl, no, like that's just how I started talking to her.
Yeah, fuck that fool.
Literally, yes. And so it was just a connection, and that's what I've come to realize. Like, people don't necessarily want what we see on Suits. There are some people that do want that, obviously.
Right.
Other people want relatability.
Yeah, it was making me right now think about my therapist, and usually sometimes you're like, I don't know, they have their very, buttoned up look or whatever as a therapist. And my current one, I'm like, she also looks like one of my friends growing up. And then I'm like, slowly like letting my own personality out and like getting more relaxed with her, because I'm starting to get that vibe. Like, she's somebody that I can be a little more like, I don't, as a client, have to feel like I have to button up too. And I think that even thinking about it from a client's end, I do remember my divorce attorney was pretty buttoned up. And then it would have been nice to just be able to be me and express myself the way that I wanted to, because that time is stressful. And then to have to go into your attorney's office, who kind of is your therapist too sometimes,
100%,
and feel like, I have to code switch as a client, then that's where it's kind of like, it would be nice to just see more diverse, how people, express themselves in these professional, realms, like being an attorney.
Yeah.
And I think like, you're right too. Like, you're like, I'm tired of having to, button up and all that stuff. So I love that you're attracting the clients that you want and who align with you and your personality, and who still see your smartness.
Yes, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, because you can have it all. You could be smart, you could be pretty, you can dress however you want to dress. And, I think men, oh my God, let's talk about men and like male attorneys. So sometimes they're so sloppy. So sloppy. So it's like the other end, so sloppy. Or I don't know, you go to court more than I ever would. I don't want to go to court as much as you, and that means I'm in trouble. But like, they probably could just dress like however they want, really, so long as they put like slacks on and maybe a button-up shirt, or maybe even a button-up shirt. Like, I don't know, but I feel like they can get away with sloppiness.
So when I go to court, I'm pretty much buttoned to the T. So not gonna lie, I still have to present in a very formal manner when I go to court, and that standard will probably always be there. Can I get away? Like, I could probably wear this with like black pants or a really nice blouse, but I'm still going to try to be very formal because the judges are going to look at me a certain type of way, and then that's going to affect my client. So I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure my client is taken care of. But like in meetings and stuff, I want to be able to be comfortable. But so I would say when we show up to court, usually the men, they're very formal. They should be very formal. But as far as like men and women, I do feel that women feel like we have to be more presentable just because we're women, because we have to like prove ourselves more. But then when I see men outside of court, I'm just like, and people hire that?
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm seeing. I'm like, dude, you're an attorney? Like, like you don't look like it. But I think but they don't have to worry about it, because that's just, like even my husband's an attorney. And so their office is like down blocks away from the courthouse. So you have all the ladies with their little tote bag and with their tennis shoes on and their heels in their hand. Where men just could
wear the little loafers,
wear some comfortable shoes and then walk over there and it's good, right? So that's just like one example of like,
that's valid.
Yeah.
Very valid. I will also say too, since we're just talking about men versus women, no hate on men. Like, none at all. None at all.
We need you too.
Yes. Please be our advocates.
Yeah, that's a good point though. Be our advocates. Yeah.
But there's just a different standard with men, because there are times where like I show up to court and the attorney on the other side, I'm just like, how did you pass the bar? And like, how do you have so many clients? And I think people just see a man and they just think like, this must be a smart person if he's an attorney. But then they see a woman or a woman of color, and it's like we have to go above and beyond to tell them like we are capable, and usually more capable than the other people they're considering. Yeah. So there have been times where I showed up to court and it's also ingrained in me a little bit. Like I go extra prepared because I'm like, oh, he must be good or they must be good. Only for me to get there and I'm just like, I over-prepared.
You're like, I feel like Kobe Bryant right now.
I could have taken the weekend off and still won this case. But no, there's definitely a double standard. And I wish more people would understand that women just bring something different to the table. And especially we have women judges now too, who also bring a different perspective to the court. So I just think that I wish there wasn't that double standard, because women come in with a little bit more empathy when it comes to our cases, because the court is one not only of just law, but also one of equity. So we do have to talk about like the fairness aspect of things, which I feel like women are also really good at. And they're really good at like showing that story and being persuasive, because it's just like innate in us.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to share with us besides your free content that people could binge watch on the Prenup Queen Instagram or TikTok? Is there any other social media outlet that you have? LinkedIn?
I have a LinkedIn, but I don't post on it because I'm still trying to balance the whole professional versus
I see.
Like how I really want to show up. So I feel like there's a time and a place. And I feel like on Instagram, it's easier for me to be completely myself on Instagram. Whereas on LinkedIn, I feel like I do have to be a little bit more professional because it's a different audience. So not saying like people on LinkedIn are not my ideal clients, because they very well could be. Yeah. But I'm just saying there's just different factors I have to consider based on the platform I'm using. So I don't post on LinkedIn as often. So I'm usually on Instagram, the Prenup Queen. I have my Facebook, which is at Wells Gibson Family Law. And then my TikTok, which just mirrors my Instagram. But I have my TikTok also, the Prenup Queen.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to share that you want to, like either your law firm or the Prenup Queen or you just yourself, like any community things that you're really immersed in or that you even want to, even going forward? Because I know sometimes like, you're so in the grind of trying to start up your business. But then once you get to a point, you're like, okay, I want to really now support my community and align with A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, I think there's two things on that one. Because like right now, the way I support my community is volunteering. So I volunteer because I originally wanted my ideal client to be my mom. And I that comes with me. That means that oh my gosh, that ideal client has no money, which I've realized I cannot run my law firm focused on that particular ideal client. So I volunteer my time to give back. And so I am there's something called like the Community Law Project, which is actually created by my law school, California Western School of Law. And they have clinics at different areas around San Diego to where people can come in for an appointment, sit down, bring their documents, and we go over their case with them. We give them strategy on what to do next. A lot of them, I end up just giving them my business card because I'm like, these are the things you need to do. If you get caught up or if something happens, here's my contact information. Contact me and I'll help you through it.
Right.
And it's all free of charge because that's just me trying to give back because I wish someone had done that for my mom. And so I'm immersed in that. I also volunteer at something called Second Saturdays. So the second Saturday of every month where it's a divorce workshop. That's not free. You do have to pay for that. I think it's like $25 maybe.
Still, that's really affordable.
Yeah.
Probably $25 well spent.
Yes, over 60.
But
Right.
There's so many facets to it. So I usually present first. So there's a divorce attorney, and then there's a financial analyst who's also there going over more of the financial aspects of a divorce. There's a mediator, so someone can talk about how to do it amicably if that's the route they want to go down. And then there's also a therapist who comes on and talks about that realm. I don't know even how to say that.
The emotional realm.
The emotional realm, of how to navigate through a divorce in the proceedings. So there's like 4 of us up there who are presenting. I always go first. And I usually tailor the presentation to the audience. So I usually ask questions like, where is everybody at in this process? Are there children involved? What are the main concerns? I jot down these notes so I can tailor my presentation to the audience. So I also do that. And then I'm trying to create my Love Meets Wealth course. So that's not necessarily like free community stuff, but
Right. But it's something the community could take and learn.
yes, because it really is my mission to lower the divorce rate. I don't know how that's going to happen, but like that's what I would love to be, even if it's just like 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever, because that's so many marriages.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to create this course, which we've actually already created it. Now it's just a matter of like, but it's basically just a course going over the laws of the state. I mean, I know California's laws like the back of my hand, but the very first module of the course is understanding your state's laws. And so there's like a whole worksheet saying, type this into Google, ask it this specific way, write down these answers, and then we go through that worksheet together. And so that's module 1. And then just going over like the different ways to have conversations regarding so many different topics. So that way those topics are already addressed. You have a solid foundation for the relationship. So that way, if situations arise, we already have a game plan. It's nothing new. It's something that we've already strategized and discussed to get them over that hurdle. And so we have that, and then just fostering communications throughout the marriage. And so that's pretty much what the course is about. It also talks about estate planning, so things to do above and beyond, but it's all outlined in there. So that way you're hitting all the legalities when it comes to the relationship.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But I want to take it even further because I'm a dreamer.
As you should be.
Yes.
As you should be.
But my goal, I mean, we just have the course right now. I still need to market it, get that up and running and, like solid before I move on. But I would love to have like retreats. So it could be like the honeymoon or whatever it is. But I also want to incorporate like a marriage and family therapist into the situation and like having them come in and talk about things like that.
That you can funnel them into that. I love that. Ooh.
Yeah. So my goal is to like make it a whole retreat situation instead of it just being a course.
Yeah.
Because I actually want to like sit down with each person and talk to each person. I understand the course allows me to like reach more people, but I still like the interaction that I get. So just I want to interact with people. So I hope the retreat would be.
Yeah. I can see that because I feel like these are, even though they do the course, right? But there's nobody physically there, like when they're coming to those hiccup moments and they can't get past. Did you guys watch Love is Blind this last season?
Yes. Not the last season, no.
Oh, okay. Well, spoiler alert. They do talk about a prenup.
Okay.
And actually, I think the one couple that did talk about a prenup, they didn't end up getting married. And one of her things was not so much about the prenup, but there was like conversations that they just didn't align with on.
Exactly.
And so, and he wasn't, what she felt like wasn't opening up or like wanting to go deeper. So I feel like if there was some sort of like immersion, you know, now you could like have somebody there to help facilitate going deeper, then that can also like, what is that? Like mitigate a lot of problems going, you know, that could arise later on because you've already opened the door path and like somebody's there. You know, it's kind of like when you want to ask your parents when you were little, like, can my friend sleep over? And you're asking them what your friend right there next to you.
Right. So you feel pressure.
So, so it's at least there's somebody there to be like, oh, okay, like a neutral party in a sense.
Yeah. Money is so like personal and everybody has like their own money story. And sometimes there's also like trauma involved.
Right.
And that's what makes it so hard to discuss like finances. People are more willing to talk about religion, politics, sex, death than they are to talk about money. But it's like money makes our world go around. And if it's really two unique individuals becoming one, like it is such an important topic that has to be had. And so just, like you said, being able to foster those relationships or those communications to help people open up because it's such a personal, I'm spitting everywhere, but it's such a personal situation. And a lot of people feel shame, especially when it comes to the amount of debt they might be in or
that's a good point.
Society, like when I'm on Instagram, Instagram makes me feel like I'm behind in life on how much money I should have in my bank account. And so I know other people feel that type of way too. And they're just like, I live paycheck to paycheck. Now I'm about to marry someone. How are they going to view me if they know I'm now living paycheck to paycheck or if I'm struggling doing X, Y, and Z? So I just feel like people feel a lot of shame around money when it shouldn't be that way.
Right. So when you do launch this course, what platform are you going to have it on? Like, is there a website? Like, is it going to be the Gibson Family Law website? Is it going to be your Prenup Queen website?
Oh, so they can find the course on my website. So if they go to www.wellsgibsonfamilylaw.com, there's a tab that says DIY, and then that's the wrong course. That's the wrong course. We're not doing the DIY. My bad. No.
The money.
Actually, that's a good question. I don't actually have it.
Okay, we'll follow on for more.
Follow on for more.
This is what is the birthing of this? Like launching it? Are you going to birth it out in the spring or is it going to be a summer baby?
It's already launched. Launched.
Okay.
I just haven't marketed it.
Got it.
I went through the entire process of creating it and then a lot of things. So anything I do outside of Wells Gibson Family Law is pretty much like a passion project of mine. And so we went through the whole process, recorded all the videos, got all the worksheets, got it all. We used Podia for the platform.
Yeah.
Got it all up and running.
That's exciting.
And then when something happens at the firm, it pulls me back in. And then I have to focus on the firm and making sure the firm's okay before I can go back to continuing to do.
Hatch that other egg.
Literally.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of ups and downs with the firm. More so when it comes to like turnover of employees. So like if an attorney leaves, I have to step in to do all the legal work. Yeah. Which pulls me out of my passion projects.
Right.
So the course is already done. It has launched. I just haven't marketed where I wanted it to be. But if anyone's looking for it, it is for sure on my Instagram, my Linktree, all that good stuff. It's on there. But it should definitely be on.
Yeah. That sounds like something is great and is it for people who are not married or people who are married or A, B, C, and D?
It's all the above. The main purpose is just to foster communications, healthy communications around
good for married
money.
People.
Yeah. And
or people dating, people engaged, like all the
Exactly.
things. Okay.
And we've also created, I wish I brought them in, money date cards. So like I try to tell
Oh, how
people
fun.
that they should go on money dates.
Okay,
at
where
least,
can they find that at?
monthly. They can find that on the Prenup Queen website.
Okay.
So www.theprenupqueen.com. And they're like $15, but there's like, they are so cute. I'll have to show them to you. But it's just questions like hypotheticals, or talks about like, how do you view money, or how do you view like luxury items? Like, what kind of vacations do you want to take? Like, it's just very simple questions, but those simple questions help you see whether you're aligned with somebody on how you view certain types of things.
Yeah.
And if you're not aligned, what's the compromise?
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, those are good. My husband and I went to Speakeasy and they had like these questions like for couples. And I was like, dude, I never even asked you some of these. We've been married for like 15 years. But it was but again, that's just like another nice way to like an intimate way to have conversations that, you know, you normally wouldn't bring up and ask.
Yeah.
Like travel and like, what does your travel look like versus mine? Because then there's the money now, you know? So yeah, I love that.
And one of the questions actually has to do with kids, because I've also come to realize that people get married or get engaged and they don't have conversations around children. So quick story, but I had a couple come in because we were doing a prenup, and I remember asking, does anyone intend to be like a stay-at-home parent? That's always, I want to be a stay-at-home parent. So like I just
Yeah.
go hard for stay-at-home parents.
Right.
And they had two completely different answers.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. The
And they were engaged?
And they were engaged.
Oh, dang.
Interesting.
So the girl was just like, yeah, like I might want to be a stay-at-home parent. And the guy's like, I don't want kids.
That's a big difference.
And I was like, that's
Right.
a huge difference. Like, and I mean, no judgment.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in my head, I'm just like, y'all didn't have this conversation? Like, that's such a huge topic. And they just never had the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also didn't finish their prenup. So I don't know if they actually.
That question probably made them break up. I'm just kidding.
No, I really think that's what happened.
I do want to leave off because I know this is a long, but fun podcast with lots of tidbits. But what you did say about you donating in your active service to the community. So I was one of those people when I got divorced at 23. Yeah, 23. And I did hire an attorney to do the custody portion because for me that felt more important.
Yes.
And then that was all handled first. And then we moved on into the actual financials of whatever, right? But I had run out of all my money. So I was like, okay, how can I DIY this? And I remember my ex-husband at the time, he was in the military. So I tried to get help and support from the military. Boy, was that hard being the ex of the military person. Yes, because you're not on base. And then even when you go, it's also very intimidating because they give you the JAG attorney, I guess.
Yep.
And I just felt like, I don't know, I didn't feel very supported. And I was like, why would I go to my husband's employer for all that help anyway? So I was like, what am I doing? Long story short, I ended up getting, I don't know how I found out, but somebody did tell me that there was free legal services. And so I did my paperwork the best I can. And then it was in the basement of the courthouse and they had somebody sit there and like go through everything with me. And then, I appeared in front of the judge myself and all that stuff. And it was intimidating. And I'm 23 years old. So I'm the millennial or the Gen Z girl that you have now. But that paralegal person was so sweet, made me feel super comfortable and, walked me through everything with patience and kindness and and it was just like looking back and I'm like, yeah, like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And not only that, I was intimidated because I was really young too.
Right.
So I think like that. And sometimes people can stay in a marriage because they're intimidated about that, like a young person being married and they're like really intimidated. Like, how do I even do this? Like, I didn't rely on my parents so much to help out in that. And also nobody in my family was ever divorced. So there was also that. So I feel like, having people do and give their time and their professional time to the community makes a big difference because, like I was your mom kind of, sort of, in that sense. So I love that your story stems from your mom and you being that kid, watch your mom go through all these hardships. Like that is very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's my why.
Yeah, I love that.
That's my why. But I will, real quick, when you said people are usually scared to leave, there are times and especially me doing consults, people aren't ready to make the decision to divorce immediately. It's something that they have to actually plan for, especially when they've been together with someone for so long or they're financially dependent on that person. Some divorces require proper planning, because if you leave, how are you going to support yourself?
Right.
How are you going to get a roof over your head for you and your kids, or provide like meals for you and your kids? Now you're going to be food and housing insecure because you don't have any money.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because I know like there's somebody that I know now where they're helping their mom, staying with them, and the dad just literally cut off the mom from all the money, and they're homeless at this point
all the time,
and they only get $1,000 for Social Security.
Happens all the time.
She's like, yep, now I gotta take care of my mom. And so and I was like, wow. So but in that situation there could be planning, there could be other resources like women's shelter homes, things like that, to help you get on your feet. But it's like just knowing that, planning all that out, you know.
I swear the person you marry is not the person you divorce. One of my clients, we had to go in on an emergency hearing because her husband took her car and then sold it.
Oh,
shit. Took her car and sold it, locked her out of all the bank accounts.
Oh, no.
Has literally nothing. Literally nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we were able to literally pick your brain and have you share with us your experience with your clients, but also the importance of like a prenup. And then also just letting everybody know that the divorce isn't that simple, that it impacts children, it impacts you, even your emotional stability, like everything gets shaken up. So we need more attorneys that are like you, that look like you,
dance like you.
Yes. And that also provide extra resources on top of all the other things that you do. So, pat yourself on the back.
Thank you.
We are so proud of you and for you to be one of our biz besties.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I had fun.
Thanks for coming. And then really quick again, so WellsGibsonFamilyLaw.com, Instagram, the Prenup Queen, and TikTok, the Prenup Queen, Facebook, Wells Gibson Family Law.
No, my Facebook, yes, it could be Wells Gibson Family Law, but I post more also on my personal, which is also public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So they'll see dancing a little bit, not as much on Instagram, but a little bit every once in a while.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And check out her course and, hit her up if you want to be one of her first retreat people.
That'll be in like years. That's down the road.
And stop it. Hell, I do retreats. So I can definitely help you organize it. It's going to happen.